It's 7:30. I'm Kirsty Young. Tonight on 5 News, police searching for missing teenager Amanda Dowler have found a body in the River Thames. We'll have the latest in just a moment. Brits fly the flag for St George's Day as France erupts in more rioting. Tonight we ask, is English patriotism a dangerous thing? As ITV Digital talks rumble on, football clubs announce their first casualties. Were the clubs too greedy in the first place? Remember, this is the show that also gives you the views behind the news, and you can add your voice to the debate by phone, text or email. Email us at news@channel5.co.uk. You can text your opinions live to 5 on our short number, that's 84555, or call our 5 News reaction line and voice your thoughts personally, 09 050 555 555. That's 09 050 555 555. Good evening, and fresh tonight, detectives investigating the death of missing teenager Amanda Dowler said tonight that a body has been found in a lock on the River Thames. Surrey police were called to Sunbury Lock, just a short distance from Walton-on-Thames, where Amanda, also known as Millie, went missing more than a month ago. Well, 5's John Gilbert is with me now for the latest. Pretty sketchy. John, what can you tell us?
Well, that's right, Kirsty. The details of this story are still coming in, so the picture isn't entirely complete, but what we can confirm is that police were alerted by a member of the public about 3.5 hours ago that there was a body floating in Sunbury Lock, just a few miles away from Walton-on-Thames, where Millie Dowler vanished about a month ago. They wouldn't confirm the sex, but I've spoken very, very recently with a local news agency who told me that they've spoken with an eyewitness who confirmed that body was female. And in addition to that, they've told me that police sources have told them that all the press offices in the region have been recalled, which does seem to suggest that whatever the announcement is likely to be fairly large scale.
Now, John, there was a massive amount of publicity surrounding this young missing schoolgirl. There were lots of press conferences. What stage was the investigation, a huge investigation, at?
Well, up until this point, local police appeared to have drawn a dead end. Millie vanished on her way home from school just over a month ago. As I say, she was spotted in the local station cafe. She was also spotted by a school friend of hers on the way home, and after that, no sign and no trail whatsoever. Police extensively searched the local area. They also went through her own house with a fine-tooth comb. There were appeals from pop stars and locals across the board, but up until now the trail did appear to have gone cold, so this is an extremely significant development.
John, thanks very much for the update. You will, of course, keep us informed throughout the show if there's any news at all, but for now, thank you. On to other news now. A wave of protest is still sweeping across France tonight as thousands of demonstrators gather to protest against the shock election success of the National Front leader Jean-Marie Le Pen. He's now in a 2-horse race to be next president of France. His anti-immigration policies scored him 17% in last Sunday's election. Not huge, but it is enough to get him through to the final round. His success is partly blamed on the millions of left-wing French people who didn't bother to cast their votes. But as we watch our neighbours across the channel hanging their heads in shame, many in Britain are still asking if the same could happen here. Could Britain allow a political force that feeds on hatred, resentment and fear to take hold? If you think the answer is no, then as Peter Lane reports, maybe you should think again.
It wasn't long ago, but it's been forgotten by many. The BNP polling 16% in Oldham.
Griffin, Nicholas John, British National Party, 655.
That vote put them in 3rd place, ahead of the Liberal Democrats. They were banned from making speeches, but their message still reaches many. With high unemployment, a high crime rate and deep-seated racial tensions, this is the kind of town where the far right get a foothold, just as they've done in France. Today may be St George's Day, but in some streets here they fly the flag all year round.
I think the BNP will get a lot more votes this time.
They've got their own mosques, they've got their own everything, so why try and join with the white people? It's not going to work, I don't think, at all.
There'll always be divisions here.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, yes.
Do you think there's a chance we could follow suit after France, with the far right getting the support they got this week in the elections?
That's frightening, actually, yeah. That is a frightening thing to see, yeah. A lot of people will take note of that. I definitely believe that, yeah.
Last year's summer of race riots shocked Britain, as did the election night success of the BNP. This week's surprise result in France has now put a sharp focus back on those events.
There's many people that are actually worried about it still, you know. something like that can happen again, like it happened last year. So
You think it might happen at these elections?
Yeah, can easily happen again.
So the countdown begins to next month's local elections, to the fight for power in the council offices behind me. It'll be the first real test of the far right in Britain. Does the BNP have enough support to win a seat on the council? Peter Lane, Oldham, 5 News.
So could widespread nationalism and the far right take hold here? It's St George's Day, and it seems the English in particular are still trying to get to grips with patriotism, let alone anything else. At best, celebrations are muted, with many people still mindful of the extreme right-wing connotations holding up a St George's flag means. Tonight we ask, is there anything wrong with being patriotic, and does it foster nationalistic tendencies? Well, joining me tonight to give their views on this and the rest of the day's news, journalist and broadcaster James O'Brien, broadcaster and Deputy Chair of the London Assembly, Trevor Phillips. Welcome to you both. Trevor, this is a huge subject. We're going to have a go at it. There's a lot to it. Should we celebrate St George's Day?
Absolutely. I think that the English have a lot to be proud of. There's a rather uncomfortable blip somewhere in the last 150 years when the English thought that they were the master race. But before that, there's a huge and wonderful history of Englishness going back through Robin Hood and so on and so forth. So I think we should celebrate it. I did say to the Mayor of London about 2 months ago that I thought we should have a celebration for St George's Day in the way we had for St Patrick's Day, and he said, nah, see, he's a Palestinian anyway, he's a crook. But I mean, you know, I don't agree with that. I think the Red Cross...
He was a Palestinian. You can't disagree with that.
He was born in Turkey, wasn't he? He was born in Turkey, and he was a crook.
Yes. But apart from that, he was a great player.
But James, staying away from St George himself, because actually pretty much irrelevant. What we're talking about here is celebrating our nationalism, saying that we are proud. You know, I'm very proud to be Scottish. Are you very proud to be English? Do you want to celebrate?
Well, I'm very proud to be Irish, actually, like a lot of people with my accent. But the difference there, I think, is that Welsh nationalism, Scottish nationalism, Irish nationalism, it actually all stems from a feeling of being besieged. It comes from a struggle for liberation. English nationalism, to me, is all about subjugating other people, all the things that people point to as things we should be proud of. The Scots have William Wallace. The English equivalent would be Clive of India, I presume, who was a massacre.
So you think the bashfulness is natural, and you think it's a good thing?
I have a problem with Englishness. I actually do, as something to be proud of.
Do you think, Trevor, that patriotism is a precursor to nationalism? Do you think it's just one step on the ladder?
Well, it can be. It's a difference between saying England is great, that's fine, and saying England is great and therefore Germans are just, you know, rubbish. I think we're happy with the first, but we're not happy with the second.
The first automatically puts in a why. Why is England great? And to answer that question, you almost always have to refer to somebody else being less great.
Okay, well, one man who is better known for his left-wing politics than his English patriotism is the singer-songwriter Billy Bragg, but he has just released a single entitled Tear Down the Union Jack. We've got a snippet of you for it now.
Britain isn't cool, you know, it's really not that great. It's not a proper country, doesn't even have a patron saint. It's just an economic union that's past its sell-by date.
That was Billy Bragg with all his words in the right order. Rising stuff. Just before the programme went on air, I asked Billy Bragg what it meant to him to be English.
It means that where I am is more important than where I'm from, or where my parents are from, or where my grandparents are from. That English is an inclusive identity based around what you see on the streets of England, whatever part of England you happen to be in.
But, you know, we have a Union Jack flying above us now. We have the same Queen. We have ostensibly the same government, apart from a bit of devolution here and there. We're all British now, aren't we?
Well, we are British in a titular way, but, you know, Britain is a state rather than a country. I mean, I think of myself as an Englishman. I don't know how you feel about it. I mean, how British are you? Will you be supporting England in the World Cup?
I might. I haven't decided yet.
No, you're a bit Scottish about it, aren't you? And it's fine for you to be Scottish.
Yeah.
For you to express your Scottishness, but it's not okay for me to be English and not be British. And I have an admiration for the Scots, because I think in the last sort of 30 years they've quietly tiptoed away from being British and from the empire and from those aspects of our history that hold us back, and they've sort of started to look towards the future, and I think it's about time England did that as well.
One last question. Why do you think that there has been this failure for people to connect with their Englishness? Why do you think that they feel embarrassed by the flag, they feel embarrassed by the very notion of it?
I think that a lot of the problem is to do with those of us on the more progressive side of politics, because we support multiculturalism and internationalism. We've left a vacuum where the English identity is, and it's been very easy for football hooligans and the far right to hijack the English symbols of identity. And I think it's about time we realise that if chicken tikka masala is the most popular meal in our country, then the idea of Englishness and multiculturalism is synonymous.
Billy, thanks very much indeed.
My pleasure, Kirsty.
Interesting. Well, we're asking whether it is possible to wave the St George's flag and not be deemed a racist or a hooligan. Don't forget that you can join in the discussion. You can add your point of view by text, by email, or by calling our 5 News reaction line and leaving us a short message. The details you need are on the screen now. You were nodding vigorously throughout that. Which bit did you most agree with?
Well, I completely agree with Billy that there are parts of the English tradition which are good. You know, England is also Dickens, and it's Shakespeare, and it's Cromwell and the Glorious Revolution, and it's Robin Hood from, you know, a left-wing point of view saying, let's take from the rich and give to the poor. These are good things about England, and these are things that we should be pinning to the cross of St George.
Interesting, James, because it's Shakespeare's birthday, not just St George's Day today. And it's interesting, in fact, that when I was looking at what was being done today for St George's Day, some things being done in and around London, and probably, I'm sure, the rest of the country, Morris dancing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, is that the problem, actually, that we're not connecting with the right things, we're connecting with things that seem a little bit
I struggle to see what these right things are from history. Everything Billy cited there is something very, very modern. It would be great to see Englishness as synonymous with multiculturalism. Most champions of what we call Englishness are quite actively opposed to multiculturalism. Cromwell is a pretty poor example if you come from Irish stock, because he was pretty much responsible for all the problems there historically.
What about, briefly, what about reclaiming the flag? Would you welcome
well,
that?
This
Briefly.
flag from this man that never set foot here, and you know, if were I a Muslim, I'd have quite a deep problem with worshipping St George, because he massacred vast numbers of Muslims, and for much the same reasons that Osama bin Laden acts against Christians today.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. I know you want to come back, we don't have time. It is in fact a little-known fact that one thing the English are becoming good at, apparently, is producing the odd bottle of vino. English Wine Week is going to take place from June the 1st to June the 9th, with vineyards around the country opening to the public for tours and tastings, so I'll raise a glass to that one. But still to come on 5 News tonight, football clubs are getting desperate over the failure to reach a deal with ITV Digital. But is it greed rather than good business sense that has been their downfall? And parents set to name and shame Britain's food industry for encouraging children to eat unhealthily. But who is really to blame for turning our kids into junk food addicts? So all that plus the rest of the day's news, it's all coming up after the break. Do stay with us. Hello again, it's 5 News, 7:44 right now. ITV Digital today started the process of shutting down some of its services. First to go are the pay-per-view movies, no longer available to the 1 million customers with set-top boxes. With the service now for sale, a courtroom showdown between the Football League and the owners looks almost inevitable tonight. The Football League and the Conservatives have demanded the government intervenes to try to find a solution to the crisis. But if the administrators do find a buyer, the fate of many smaller football clubs will at best remain uncertain. Non-Premiership clubs are owed almost £180 million by the ailing broadcaster. So, whether or not ITV Digital is sold and the Football League recovers some or all of the monies owed, it is pretty much accepted that football clubs need to take a long, hard look at themselves and ask, where's the money going to come from in the future? Is it time for football clubs to look seriously again at TV rights, how they fund themselves and how much they are prepared to pay their players? Well, still with me in the studio, broadcaster and journalist James O'Brien, and broadcaster and deputy chair of the London Assembly, Trevor Phillips. James, red faces at the Football League bosses there.
Well, red faces. I feel very sorry for them. I don't think they've done bad business. I think they've been led up the garden path by ITV Digital, who are now turning around and saying, oh, didn't we mention that, you know, if we changed our minds, we won't pay you. As a result, they've had to declare bankruptcy, and the only losers are going to be the teams in the lower division.
Trevor, don't you think that the football clubs themselves had a responsibility? I mean, if somebody wants to pay you a ludicrous amount of money for something, it might be very tempting to accept it, but in the end you've got to work out whether you're actually ever going to get the money.
It's a big problem. They all thought it was Christmas Day for the whole year, and they thought that television would just pour loads of money down their throats, which, by the way, they then gave to the players. And the problem with football teams is that the players eat the money. And they thought they would be able to just get away with it forever, and eventually the government would come in. I think it's outrageous that they're demanding taxpayers' money for what was a deal.
Okay, well, Torquay United has become the first club to suffer the consequences of the ITV digital fiasco. Today the club lost its assistant manager and manager. Torquay's chairman is Mike Bateson. He joins us now. Thanks for taking the time, Mike, of what I'm sure has been a very traumatic day. Do you take any responsibility on the club's shoulders, your own shoulders, for the mess that you now find yourself in?
I think that the entire mess is down to ourselves in that the gentleman was quite right. We have paid the money back out to the players, and we don't get it back off as easily from them as ITV Digital can do with us. We can't renege on deals.
So how does that happen then? Is that down to agents just really pumping you, twisting your arm and putting you in an untenable position, or is that down to the footballers themselves having a completely exaggerated sense of their own worth?
Mixture of both, but agents certainly have got to play their part in it. I don't know what point the gentleman there was trying to make about asking for taxpayers' money. To my knowledge, none of us in football have actually asked for any taxpayers' money.
Who was
well, as I understand it, part of the supposition behind everybody's negotiation now that the government might come in and help to save some of these clubs because we don't want them to go to the wall. But I think the truth of the matter is that that's just not untenable.
Well, it's interesting, Mike, because actually I found out this evening that in Spain and Italy, big clubs, and we're talking here like clubs like Juventus, Lazio, Real Madrid, much bigger clubs than yours, are actually helped by local government. Do you think there is a point for saying that football clubs are, in many cases, at the centre of local communities? They play a very important part, and maybe they should be bailed out?
I think we play a part. I would question the importance of it. I think clubs should be self-sufficient. We attempted to do that with the ITV Digi deal that didn't come off.
Were there no voices of caution at all during the meetings of League Chairman when you were presumably rubbing your hands at the prospect of all this money coming in?
Oh, good Lord, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm not being smug about it, but that's why we're sat with several £100,000 still in the bank, because we didn't blow it all at once.
So can you tell us what situation you're in then financially right now? Because as I understand it, you were due to get just shy of 120 grand over the next 2 years from the ITV digital deal. Where's your club now?
Yeah, we in addition to that, we've got our basic award from the league, which is £21,000 a month, which is other sponsorships, including terrestrial TV. That's slashed as well. And funding for youth is slashed next year. So we're looking at a shortfall of £6,000 a week. And I'm addressing that now rather than later.
Do you think that you can survive as a club?
Oh, no problem at all. Whether we survive in football terms, you know, whether we don't get relegated is another matter. But financially, we'll survive. I just wish that we could get out of our player contracts as easily as ITV seems to have got out of theirs.
Mike Bateson, thanks very much for joining us this evening.
My
we're going to have to leave it there. Before we do, let me tell you that the Nationwide Conference League players, way down at the bottom there, earn on average just £300 a week. And I'm sure they chase the ball just as hard, being paid that money. On to other news now, and at least 3 people have died and more than 250 have been injured in a train crash in Los Angeles. A freight train collided head-on with a packed commuter train during the busy morning rush hour. 2 carriages were derailed. Emergency services set up a makeshift medical centre next to the scene of the crash. Paramedics say 25 of the injured are still fighting for their lives. Now, the UK food industry was given some food for thought tonight over what it encourages our children to eat. Britain's most sugary, unhealthy foods and the companies who make them are about to be named and shamed by a new parents' jury set up by food watchdog the Food Commission. Our consumer correspondent Charlotte Hume explains how, if you've got kids, it could help you.
Let me have it. Please let me have it. Oh, go on, let us have it. Oh, please, Mum, let me have it.
Wouldn't it be nice if it weren't the kids who decide what we have in our supermarket trolleys to eat, and instead the parents who make the decision? Well, today the Food Commission have launched the idea of a parents' jury, and they want angry parents like you to join up and say which foods you think should be advertised as healthy to our kids and which should be chucked off the supermarket shelves.
We hope that the companies will listen to these, to parents basically, because this is the first chance that they've had to collectively have a voice and speak out against the sorts of foods that are marketed at their children.
Well, we asked our own parents' jury what they really cared about when it came to food.
What drives me mad is aspartame in children's food, and then it being marketed as something that's good for you. You can have as much of it as you want because it won't hurt your teeth, for example. It drives me crazy.
I really hate the way that children's food is
separate from the food that everybody else eats, and how children are expected to eat a completely different diet. When you go into a restaurant or in schools or wherever, they have fish fingers, chicken nuggets, which is not what we eat. We'd eat chicken or fish.
The drinks I get neither, because it says no added sugar, but there is sugar in them.
We'd be very concerned about salt content of products and quite accurate labelling of salt content, as opposed to the products that just say trace, and you're not entirely sure what a trace is.
I think that it's probably most important for there to be better standards about what's printed on the labels.
The idea is that parents will be able to take on the food giants and hand out awards such as the Pester-Power Prize for the marketing technique that most encourages children to nag their parents for junk food. Charlotte Hume, 5 News.
So the food police have rounded up the suspects. The jury is out to consider its verdict. That's what we're talking about now. Name them and shame them, Trevor. Great idea.
Oh, it's just pathetic, actually. I mean, honestly, okay, let's have accurate information. But, honestly, it's for parents to say to their children, no, you can't have that. That's not good for you. I think what's happening here is that they're trying to get the Food Commission or whoever it is to basically do the job that parents ought to be doing.
So absolving parents of their responsibility.
Well, I think the first prerequisite of responsibility is knowledge, and I don't think the parents have the knowledge, let alone the children. And for companies to spend millions and millions of pounds on attempting to effectively furnish them with false knowledge is, to me, pretty criminal behaviour, and this is a step in the... That's why they're the police, I suppose. It's a step in the direction of redressing it.
But they're not saying that the information is wrong. They're simply saying that there isn't enough information, which is fine. But I think they're
also addressing things like the fact that, you know, dissolved bottles of orange-coloured sugar are sat next to the proper orange juice in supermarkets, and people can't tell the difference.
But it sounds to me like it's parents who don't want to be able to deal with children who are saying, please give me this, please give me this. You've got to learn to do that if you're
James,
a parent.
All parents have to do is read the labels, right?
Well, I'm outnumbered here, but I'm not a parent, but I would imagine that if you're wheeling your trolley around the supermarket and your children at the same time, then reading the labels properly is probably something of a luxury. So anything that simplifies it for the parents has got to be a good thing.
Well, Trevor, what about the massive marketing machine behind so many of these conglomerates, these food companies? We're talking here, they make food that costs little or almost nothing. Full of fats, it's full of sugars, it's bad for their teeth, early onset diabetes, rickets even in some kids now, terrible caries in their teeth. Children are at the receiving end of so much marketing, and the parents are trying to fight it. This is just a lending hand.
Yeah. Well, look, my wife is a psychotherapist, and she's an expert on this. She wrote a book called Saying No and all this, about that parents have got to be able to teach their children that there should be boundaries. They've got to be able to discriminate between good and bad. And frankly, whether you do it at 3 or you do it at 23, they're going to have to learn sometime. So, frankly, I think it's much better, while they're under parents' control, in parents' hands, it's a good idea for them to learn how to make the distinction between what's good for them and what's bad for them.
I could talk about this all night. As always, you have been very busy messaging us with your thoughts on the day's talking points. This is what you've had to say on St. George's Day and patriotism. One caller has picked up his mobile to say he is a British Asian. He says that he has experienced pub and football crowds, and he has been forced to feel fear of the flag of St. George. Agatha from Newport has called to say St. George's Day should unite all races born in England and not be used to antagonise non-whites born here. That's all we have time for this evening. Just a quick recap of tonight's top story then. Detectives investigating the death of missing teenager Amanda Dowler have said tonight that a body has been found in a lock on the River Thames, just a short distance from Walton-on-Thames, where Amanda, also known as Millie to her friends, went missing more than a month ago. That's it for now. Thanks very much to my guests, Trevor Phillips, and to James O'Brien. We've got updates throughout the evening, but for now, from me and everyone on the 5 News team, bye-bye.
Channel 5 weather, sponsored by RAC Auto Windscreens. On call, whatever the weather. Whew.
Hello, good evening. Well, a band of high pressure means we are largely in for a clear night with light south to southwesterly winds. The satellite shows some cloud that's pushing eastwards across the UK overnight, bringing showery rain, particularly to northwest Scotland. And that's in evidence. If we take a look at the evening picture, we can see that band affecting western coastal areas through Scotland. Now, Northern Ireland will remain dry but fairly windy, and we will see some cloud building up with the possibility of just the odd light shower through the southwest. But elsewhere, as you can see, a clear, dry night for England and Wales with some mist and fog patches in places. It will feel mild with temperatures around 7 in the north and 6 to 11 elsewhere. Then, as we move into tomorrow, well, a largely great day elsewhere, thanks very much to that band of high pressure. The majority of the country will enjoy plenty of sunshine. It will be cloudier, though, around western coastal areas, with light rain, though, pushing in through the coast of Northern Ireland and also western Scotland later on. Temperatures very similar to today, 21 degrees through the south, that's 70 degrees in Fahrenheit. Well, is it going to last? Let's take a look ahead for the next few days. Certainly for the north, showers are pushing in on Thursday. They will get heavier on Friday and Saturday. And as far as central parts go, well, I'm afraid it's not going to last there either. A cloudy morning on Thursday, but becoming drier, a little bit brighter, but still more persistent rain on Friday. And then moving on finally to the south, well, we'll make the most of it on Thursday, because by Friday and Saturday we are going to see more in the way of persistent, heavier showers. That's it from me.
Channel 5 weather, sponsored by RAC Auto Windscreens. On call, whatever the weather.